The air in Dry Creek Town hung heavy with dust and judgment that afternoon. A crowd gathered in the square as if watching a spectacle instead of a tragedy. The wooden platform stood in the middle, the sun beating down mercilessly on the trembling women lined up like cattle. Each one was marked with the dirt of survival, not sin. Yet the townsfolk whispered as though they were criminals. Among them stood a woman in a torn crimson dress. Her name was Evelyn. Her wrists were bound with rough rope, but her eyes carried the strength of 1,000 storms. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She only looked toward the horizon, as if waiting for something, or someone, that might never come. The sheriff, a thick man with a cold heart and a gleaming badge, held up a slip of paper and announced, "The marshal's order stands. These women caught near the outlaw camps are to be relocated, or chosen by any man of good standing willing to take responsibility." His voice carried across the square, soaked with authority and disdain. The crowd murmured in excitement. To them this was entertainment. To Evelyn it was humiliation. Then came a deep, calm voice from the crowd, one that silenced even the sheriff's arrogance. "That's enough, Sheriff," said Luke Carter, a rancher known across the county for his quiet strength in tragedy. His wife had died 2 winters ago, leaving him to raise his twin daughters alone. He wasn't a man of many words, but when he spoke, even the wind seemed to listen. The sheriff smirked. "Ah, the widower Carter. You're late to the party. You can choose any woman you want." The words dripped with mockery, as though kindness was a joke in Dry Creek. Luke's jaw tightened. He didn't look at the women as property, but as people. Still, the town's eyes were on him, waiting to see if he'd join their game. His daughters, Annie and Rose, stood by his side, each clutching a small rag doll. They were only 6, their innocence glowing like fragile light in that dark place. They didn't understand why the women looked so sad or why their father's eyes were filled with pain. Luke took a slow step forward, scanning the line. The sheriff expected him to pick the youngest or prettiest, something to make the crowd cheer. But Luke's eyes stopped at the woman in red. There was something haunting about her calm defiance. Something that reminded him of the fire his late wife once carried. He hesitated. Before he could speak, the sheriff taunted, "Go on, Carter, make your choice. Any woman. Maybe she'll even thank you for saving her." Just then, Annie tugged her father's sleeve and pointed with her tiny hand. "Papa," she whispered, her voice soft but certain. "That's her." Rose echoed her twin's words. "Yes, Papa, that's her." "The lady in the red dress?" The crowd turned their heads in surprise. The sheriff chuckled darkly. "The little angels have taste," he said mockingly. But Luke didn't smile. His daughter's words weren't random. They were certain, like they recognized something in Evelyn that no one else did. He looked at her again. Beneath the dust and defiance, he saw the truth, exhaustion, hunger, and an unspoken story. She didn't flinch when he met her eyes. She simply said, "You don't want me, sir. I've already been chosen by trouble." Her voice was calm, but every syllable carried a lifetime of pain. Luke stepped closer, his hat casting a shadow across his face. "Maybe trouble's been looking for someone brave enough to stop it," he replied quietly. The sheriff scoffed. "So you're choosing her?" Luke nodded. "Yes, I'll take her." The crowd gasped. Some laughed, others shook their heads. "Fool rancher," someone muttered. But Luke ignored them. He untied her hands himself, the rope leaving angry marks on her wrists. "You're safe now," he said softly. She didn't thank him, only gave a small nod, the kind a wounded soul gives when it doesn't dare hope. He led her away as the twins walked between them, one holding Evelyn's hand as if she'd known her forever. As they left the square, the sheriff called out, "Hope you know what you're doing, Carter. Some women bring storms you can't ride out." Luke didn't look back. He simply said, "Then I'll build her a home strong enough to weather it." That night the town couldn't stop talking. Some said Luke had gone mad. Others said he'd saved a witch. But his daughters slept peacefully for the first time in months. Because, in their hearts, they knew something. The world didn't. The woman in red wasn't just another wanderer. She was someone fate had brought home. Evelyn awoke before sunrise in the small, wooden cabin at the edge of Carter Ranch. The world was quiet, the kind of quiet that almost felt holy. She sat by the window, looking out at the land stretching into the mist. She hadn't slept in a real bed in years. The twins' laughter echoed faintly from the next room. And for the first time in forever, she didn't feel hunted. She felt safe, though she didn't understand why. Luke stepped into the room with a tin cup of coffee. "You don't have to stay," he said gently. "You can leave when you're ready." She didn't answer at first. "Why did you do it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You didn't even know me." He looked out the window before answering. "Because my girls saw something I didn't, and I trust them more than I trust this world." The days that followed were quiet, but healing. Evelyn helped around the ranch, feeding chickens, mending fences, teaching the twins how to braid their doll's hair. The girls adored her, calling her Miss Evie. She smiled for the first time in years when they did. But the peace couldn't last forever. Dry Creek had a way of punishing those who didn't follow its rules. One morning, 3 riders appeared at the Carter gate, one of them wearing the sheriff's badge. "Carter!" the sheriff called out, voice cold as steel. "That woman you took, she's no innocent. She's wanted for harboring an outlaw and stealing a horse from the governor's patrol." Luke stepped forward, hand on his rifle, calm but firm. "She's under my protection now," the sheriff smirked. "Then you'll hang beside her when the time comes." Evelyn came out from behind him, trembling but resolute. "It's true," she said. "I took the horse, but not for escape, for medicine. My brother was dying. The sheriff didn't care for explanations." He raised his hand to grab her, but before he could, the twins ran out from the house, standing in front of Evelyn. Annie shouted, "You can't take her! She's our mama!" The sheriff froze, startled. The crowd that had followed him murmured. "She ain't your mama!" the sheriff barked. But the girls clung tighter to Evelyn, crying, "Yes, she is! God sent her to us!" Luke's eyes filled with emotion. In that moment, something broke inside him, the wall he'd built around his heart since his wife's death. He stepped between Evelyn and the sheriff. "You heard them," he said firmly. "She's their mother now, and she's staying." The sheriff hesitated, then spat into the dust. "This ain't over, Carter." He rode off with his men, leaving behind the sound of hooves and the taste of dust and defiance. When the silence returned, Evelyn sank to her knees, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Why would you do that?" she asked. Luke knelt beside her. "Because sometimes family isn't chosen by blood. It's chosen by the heart." The twins hugged her tightly, and in that moment Evelyn's broken spirit found a home it never had. Months passed. The ranch flourished again. The woman in red now wore light colors, her smile brighter than the morning sun. She taught the twins songs her mother once sang, and Luke watched her from afar, knowing that sometimes miracles don't come with thunder, they come softly, like the voice of 2 little girls saying, "Papa, that's her." And so, the man who had lost love found it again in the unlikeliest way, through innocence, forgiveness, and a woman brave enough to fight her past.